Welcome everybody to the Tech-in-20 for virtual bridges. Thank you so much for your time today. A quick reminder about the format for this series. What our plan is to run through a topic for 20 minutes, and once we get through that topic, and today the topic will be Bridgepoint. We're going to be going through some of the product features. We're going to do a live demo for you, and then we're going to open it up to questions at the end. My name is Tanya. I'm your host for today, and although you can submit your questions at any time, we are going to save them to the end just to make sure we at least get through the material in our designated 20 minutes. If you're not familiar with the WebEx tool, the chat option is up at the top. Just go ahead and send a note to the host, and we'll get to your questions at the end. So with that, why don't we get started and just kick off with our panel. I'm going to introduce you to Brad and John. We've got the product guy, we've got the strategy guy in the room. Each of them has spent over 15 years serving the needs of IT organizations around the world, and their goal today is to tell you what we're doing with the Bridgepoint product. So the burning question, Brad, why don't we start with what is Bridgepoint?
Thanks, Tanya. Bridgepoint really is it's a culmination of a lot of market trends that we're seeing in the industry right now. With the move of enterprise to more and more of a as-a-service types consumption model, it's right for moving the desktop virtualization of workload to that type of platform. So what we've done is we've created a very simple-to-install virtual appliance that allows an IT administrator to go from an empty cloud tenant to a connected desktop in about 15 minutes. It's really a compelling solution to an expected workload for the cloud.
Okay, so I heard a couple of key words there I want to call out. One of them was virtual appliance, and the other was the existing cloud.
Correct.
Yeah, those key points there, okay. So John, why don't you give us a little background on why this product even exists? Like what was the thinking behind it?
Sure. So, you know, like Brad said, we were kind of focused on emerging trends in the market, and it's no secret that service-based models, service-based consumption models, where the kind of the whole theme needs to be fast and right now and performant, and all these themes have converged into what we consider cloud today. And we took a look at our product portfolio and said, you know, VDI makes a lot of sense to put on the cloud, providing desktop as a service for end-user consumers, whether they're actual individual entities like extra companies that an MSP or a telco might provide to, or whether it's IT as a service to the IT population within any given enterprise. So, you know, in response to that, we decided to create this product, Bridgepoint, and the whole goal is to make it as simple and as agile as possible and make it extremely fast.
Okay, so for the most part, you're seeing that this is a tool for administrators to use then, right?
Well, it's an administrator tool that's really serving end users for their productivity needs.
Okay, got it. So why don't we just talk a little bit about how it works? You want to go through the architecture with us a little bit?
Sure, yeah, we can go into a little more detail there. So if you look at the diagram here, and center left is Bridgepoint, and that's really what you download. You can go to our website and you can request a POC or a trial of Bridgepoint, and once you download Bridgepoint, you upload it into your OpenStack-based or your VMware-based platform. Once it's been uploaded and started, the wizard-driven interface leads you through deploying 2 extra appliances that we created. And this is done automatically as soon as you tell Bridgepoint where it's at. So the first is the connection broker appliance, and this is something we designed from the ground up for the cloud. And if you're familiar with VDI or DAS at all, then this is a pretty common component of any solution. And that gets deployed automatically and is exposed to the end users or the clients that are connecting up to the workloads in the cloud. The second thing that we designed is the workload controller appliance. The thought here is really we wanted to take the onus of all the administration activies, anything that's happening on the back end, whether it's standing up virtual workloads within the cloud, or whether it's monitoring or logging or reporting activities, we wanted to keep the performance on the front end for the end users, and on the back end kind of be able to manage all the extra activities without impacting performance. Finally, I guess if you look in the upper left, you know, we're saying that we connect to LDAP or Active Directory, and the concept there is just to show that not only is security top of mind, but we've really considered authentication and authorization as a key component of integrating Bridgepoint into any cloud environment.
Okay, so one thing I want to pick out before we delay any further and do the demo is I heard you say that this now, out of the gate, will rest on OpenStack or VMware. Is that right?
Yeah, it installs on OpenStack or VMware today, and you know, one cool feature about this is not only that do the additional connection broker and workload controller appliance automatically deploy, but Bridgepoint also monitors itself and makes sure that if we see thresholds being reached within these extra appliances, that it'll scale up and scale down without any interaction by the system administrators.
Okay, cool. So without further ado, and everybody watching, let me just bear with us. Your screen might go blank for a minute.
Yeah, so let's dive into it. We should be able to see
your screen.
The Bridgepoint login here. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and log in, and we're going to make a couple assumptions here. First, Bridgepoint's already been installed. This is in one of our clouds in our development lab, and so that means it's been installed. We've already told it what cloud it's running on, and so we're going to see some of that reflected here in a minute.
Okay, so John, I heard a rumor while you're logging in that the installation process only takes like 15 minutes. Is that true?
Yeah, you know, actually we kind of had our VP of engineering, his mother is the litmus test. If she couldn't install this product, then we didn't make it simple enough to use. And while it's kind of a joke, we really held ourselves to that level. And so anybody with any IT experience can get this installed in about 15 minutes. I think, you know, with first time out, you know, you're looking maybe just a couple minutes longer, but really the whole point is that all you have to do is upload and start it. It does everything else for you.
Okay, so, and that's not common, right?
I don't know of any other products in the industry that can do this.
Okay, cool.
So what you're looking at on the screen here is kind of the splash screen showing you what's available, what's been used, what's been consumed, and what's not. And if you'll notice on the upper left, we've got all clouds highlighted. I've only got one cloud added here, but we can add multiple clouds. And these could be either VMware or OpenStack-based clouds. So we can see on this Bridgepoint cloud, which is an OpenStack cloud in our lab, that we're using some of our quota that's been allocated to this tenant. If we go up top to the main navigation bar, there's several different things that we can look at here. Under the admin area, we can add new admins. There's group policies. We can add more directory services in here. I'll show you that in a minute. Licensing and then global settings, which is kind of interesting. You can tie this to FQDN, and you can also tie this to a central logging server and use syslog. So really we get into the meat of it when we look into the setup tree here. And this is kind of admin level, so all of the options are displayed here in this role that I'm in now. But if you divide this in half, you've got workloads on the left and access on the right. And I kind of think of it like the architects work on the left-hand side in adding clouds and setting up what is possible to be used. And then an operations engineer type role works on the right-hand side and adds policies that give specific users or groups access to desktops. So we look at the workload area, the first thing that needs to be checked is to see if there's a gold image available to use. A gold image is really just an operating system that's available that can be provisioned by Bridgepoint. And this pulls directly from the cloud to determine what gold images are available there. We can see we have several, including a Windows 7 and a Windows 8 image. The next step is to take those gold images and bind them to a cloud in Bridgepoint so it understands what it's doing. And we'll do one of those real quick here. We'll call this a webinar software image. And we can assign a cost. It might be let's just say it's $1 an hour, and we're going to run Windows 7 desktop with this image. And once we hit confirm, we can see it down here that it's available. The next step is to create a hardware size. The hardware size really says, okay, so we're gonna create a size, and this might be a hardware size for a specific role or function within an organization, or it might be for a specific customer. And we're gonna bind that to a cloud and to a cost. So we'll call this webinar hardware size. And we'll say this is gonna be an extra $2 an hour, and we're gonna give them a flavor that has 2 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM, 40 gigs of disk. And once we've confirmed there, we can see that this hardware size is now available. So kind of the final step is to bind all of this together into basically a desktop profile. If you think about it, if you go to HP.com or Dell.com or Apple.com, when you're building out a new computer, you'll pick your basic laptop of what you expect, and you'll add on your RAM and your CPU, and then you'll bind that together with an operating system. That's really what we're doing here. So we'll add a desktop, we'll just call this webinar desktop, and we'll pick our hardware size that we selected here, that we created rather, and then we'll select our software size here, and that all looks good, so we'll hit submit. And that's it for the kind of the architect side. The next step is to take it over to more of an operations role and add domains. So we've just got one Windows domain here. This Windows domain is our internal Active Directory domain, and this is what we're going to present to be available to be bound to any Windows images that we start up so that policies can be applied. You can add as many domains as you like. The next step is to make sure we have session settings created. Now, I've got 2 here right now. One of them is a very open session setting called all enabled, and another one is a more restricted session setting. I can add another one if I want. We'll just call this webinar, and maybe we're just going to enable clipboard, just copy and paste. So you can copy and paste from your client to your virtual desktop. And once that's submitted, we can now see that we have a 3rd session setting available. The next step is to make sure that our directory services are there. So this is what we're all going to authenticate against. And again, this is our Active Directory system here. All the basic authentication information is in there, so we don't need to add another one. The final step is to create a policy. And a policy is what's necessary in order to give specific users or groups access. So I can I'll type in Verde here, and I will select this group. Now this group has some developers in it, and I know that those developers will have access. I want to give them access to a specific desktop, so I'll give them access to the webinar desktop. I'm going to apply our session setting that we created that just allows the clipboard copy and paste. And then I'm going to apply the Windows domain to all of these desktops. So we can see here in the confirmation that this group is getting this desktop. We have a session setting here and a Windows domain there. And when we hit submit, now this group is able to connect to a desktop. And that's it. At this point, anybody within this group is now able to use the Virtual Bridges client and connect up and get a desktop. And I can show you that here. So we use the client. Here's a username. We'll put in a password. We're going to get a Windows 7 desktop to connect to. Here you go. The desktop's just come up. This is a non-activated version. And so if you can see my screen, you can see I've got a Windows 7 desktop connected here.
Okay. So, except for some of the steps, along the way, building in the gold image factory or some of those things, I mean, we were looking at exactly what someone would have to do to get this all up and going, right?
Right.
Like, there's no hidden, big manual of 100 pages behind the scenes that you have to work through.
No, we really wanted to make a product that didn't require a large manual to use. We wanted to be able to appeal to groups that might not have expertise and maybe don't want to afford the operational expense of expensive resources that have to run a complex VDI environment.
Right. Okay, cool. If you can just go back to the console itself, let me turn to Brad and just ask, how are the installations going and what's feedback from the market so far?
Overall installations are going pretty well. What we're hearing quite consistently is people really like the simplicity of the solution. They love the ability to install in both an OpenStack and a VMware environment. This is really allowing organizations to start having real no-vendor lock-in discussions. And then finally, it just works. Desktop virtualization just needs to work and be simple to manage. John mentioned earlier some of our design goals, and we're definitely getting ease of use in our installation feedback.
Okay. Before we move on to some of the questions, thank you for everybody who's already been submitting them. We'll get to them in just a quick second. Brad, I have one more question for you because you know everybody wants to know what's this going to cost.
Well, I talked a bit earlier about the as-a-service trends in the industry. So what we've done is created a pricing model based on an annual subscription consumption. This allows for an all-inclusive workload and support cost that's easy consumable by an IT administrator.
Okay, so I'm not hearing a number.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's best answered by our sales team. Needs can be very unique to each of your organizations and environments. So let us help you decide how best to consume and deploy the technology.
All right, well, one more try at it. Can you at least give us a swag? Do you think we're going to be more expensive where we're priced or better than the alternative?
We will definitely be the most cost-effective solution available, especially for any cloud-based deployments.
All right, well, you heard that here, and it is recorded. So thanks so much, guys. Everybody who's, again, if you're on the phone and you have a burning question, please shoot it out to the host through the WebEx chat tool. Thank you to everybody who's already been sending them, and we're just going to jump into it right out of the gate. I mean, the topics are going to go all over the place. So one of the questions already was why OpenStack? You know, it seems, and John, maybe this one's for you. I mean, VMware obviously seems to make some sense, but fill us in on that.
Yeah, so what we did is we looked at the market landscape today, and VMware ESX-based virtualization has something like 70% of the market. So we knew we wanted to be able to orchestrate there. But we also have been looking at cloud trends across the industry, and OpenStack technology is one of the only technologies that really bridges that gap between private cloud and public cloud seamlessly. So from the perspective of multiple entities, you know, a good example is if you deploy an OpenStack-based private cloud, you can count on being able to have APIs and services that will work over with Rackspace or HP or several others. So when we took a look at that, we took a look at the continued increase in adoption of OpenStack. It was clear that was a very strategic move for us for long term, and by being able to orchestrate on VMware, we're able to get into, you know, we're able to service customers with the technology decisions that they've made in their data centers already today.
Okay, and just touching back on VMware, can you be a little specific about what Bridgepoint works off of? What do you need? Yeah,
sure. So what we didn't want to do is write a resource scheduler for Bridgepoint, and so we use VMware's DRS technology in order to do the resource scheduling for the desktop workloads. So you need to have vSphere with DRS.
Okay. Cool. Another question that we got along the way is where does the Virtual Bridges Verde solution fit in, or does it in this scenario?
It does. Verde is a very unique solution for a customer that would require a bare metal up solution, an all-in-one, one throat to choke, kind of a private cloud in a box. You could almost call it, you know, a software-based convergence infrastructure offering, whereas Bridgepoint takes us from the absolute other angle that says, hey, you've got a cloud deployed, you've got virtualization already existing. Here's what we can do on top of your existing infrastructure with the decisions you've already made in your data center.
Okay, great. So, so far, I think, Richard, Fabio, we've answered some of your questions. We've got a few questions from Douglas on the line. One of them is about the multi-tenancy capabilities. Can one of you give us a little bit more detail about that?
So multi-tenancy, I guess we could look at that from a couple different angles. One is that Bridgepoint itself connects at a tenant level to an OpenStack cloud. And I'm going to talk specifically to OpenStack here, but so if you have multiple tenants in your OpenStack cloud, Bridgepoint can connect to as many tenants as you choose, and you can deploy desktops to any of those tenants based on the policies that you create. So short answer is yes, multi-tenancy is enabled, but in the future, we're actually developing what we're calling embedded multi-tenancy, which is kind of neat because that will enable you to not have to create multiple tenants in your OpenStack cloud, instead creating a larger singular tenant and then allowing Bridgepoint to manage the quota consumption across maybe a customer base that's completely contained within the Bridgepoint product.
Okay, cool, thanks. And also from Douglas, we have a question about the clients that this will serve.
So the end clients today are, well, you saw my demo, it was on a Mac. We also have Windows clients and we have Linux clients.
Okay. We got a question from Paulius. It looks like, let's see. Sorry, just give me a sec. I'm just reading the question. So for service providers, how do you see them? I mean, really in a nutshell, what we're looking at is how do you guys see DaaS service providers taking advantage of Bridgepoint's capabilities now or in the future?
Yeah, you know, I think Bridgepoint really is a great solution for service providers because service providers are looking for ways to dynamically reappropriate their hardware quickly. I mean, it's all about speed anymore. And Bridgepoint gives you the latitude to do that and launch new workloads on existing infrastructure. So if you've got a cloud and you're servicing multiple different end users, I think Bridgepoint fits in really well.
Okay, and along with that, we've also gotten a question from Leslie around the future features. So you mentioned earlier embedded multi-tenancies in the works. Brad, maybe this one might be for you, is tell us a little bit about what other, I mean, don't reveal too much secret sauce, but what else you guys got in the works?
Right, so another key one is an HTML5 client, and this really lets you have a truly agnostic connectivity option. Extends you into anything with a browser becomes the client mechanism for you. Something else that we're pretty excited about is being able to do live migrations, you know, between clouds, actually taking an existing served up virtual workload and migrate it between the two different cloud platforms.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Brad. We've got time for one more question, which is probably related to the, the DaaS discussion and potentially for service providers. How is Bridgepoint addressing MS licensing issues?
Right. So, Microsoft licensing has long been the bane of DaaS providers' existence, and the common way that this is addressed is with using a Windows server in order to present a desktop-like experience. But it's not really true VDI unless you're using a consumer-grade operating system. There's a couple ways that you can start to turn TCO towards the direction that you need it to. And one of those is by using the Hyper-V hypervisor. So we're right now in the middle of certifying Hyper-V on OpenStack so that you'll be able to have a full VDI platform that will avoid some of those expensive licensing costs and you'll be able to end up putting that money back in your pocket.
Okay, great. Brad, John, I think what I'd like to do is say thank you and wrap it up. For everybody on the phone, I know that there were some really specific product questions, and to be respectful of the time slot, what I'd like to recommend is the best thing for you to do is get your eval scheduled, as soon as you can. We are ready to be we're doing evaluations right now. You will need to talk to someone from the sales organization. The way to reach them is 1-877-926-8834. We do have some information available and some demo videos available online on our website, so do check it out at vbridges.com. But this product is ready for you to check out right now, so just give sales a call, and we'd be happy to help. Thanks, guys, and thanks, everybody on the phone.